Well, how about that? Congratulations. You don't suck. That's got to be some. That's got to be some really uplifting news to hear, because oftentimes we tell ourselves that we suck. I know pretty much that every single time I go ahead and practice guitar, the very first thing I say is, "All right, well, you suck. It's time to go ahead and practice." Well, guess what? You don't suck. I've gone over a few things that may be objections brought up by players that makes them feel as if they suck. Well, guess what? You don't. Things like, they hit the dislike button on me. I don't have enough views or subs. I play the same stuff. I'm not fast enough. My playing is too simple. I don't know enough styles. I get treated badly when I go to the local jam night. The crowd is not responding to my playing. The other guitar player gets all the crowd approval, or whatever. I don't have the right gear. I can't get gigs. Learning new things is too hard. Player X is so much better than I am. I'm too old. I'm too young. Those are some of the things that a lot of us tell ourselves. And the thing is that those are all just made up in our head. These are all objections that we bring upon ourselves because we're feeling insecure somehow. Well, it's time to drop all that and start having some fun and playing that instrument, if you know what I'm talking about. Let's go ahead and start with our first one. Somebody hit the dislike button. Okay, first off, do we know of any really awesome guitar players that spend their days going on YouTube and hitting the dislike button? I haven't heard of any personally, and maybe there are some out there that just won't admit it. After all, who's going to admit that they sit around hitting the dislike button? What is respectable about that? Not a damn thing. So chances are the person that hits that is threatened by you somehow. You either look better than them, you have a cooler guitar than they do, you're in more of an ideal age spectrum, maybe you have more hair than they do, maybe you're skinnier, maybe you're more filled out than they are, maybe you're more buff than they are. I have no idea. Long and short of it is, that says you do something that's better than me and I feel very threatened by it. That's what that's for. All right? So when the more of those you get, the better you're actually doing. The more views that you get, the more subs that you get, the more of those you're going to get. You see it all the time. Pick any popular video, hop on there, see how many of those are actually there. Yeah. Question answered. You don't suck. The more of those you get, the more you can realize you don't suck. Next. Not enough views or subscribers. It's YouTube, okay? Some people buy views and subscribers. Some people make a really pretty thumbnail. Some people, their message is so simple that it really reaches such a general audience. And that's great. Nothing down on them. That does not mean you suck, right? Some guitar players may have gotten popular before the era of YouTube, before YouTube even existed. Bam, instant subs and likes all over the place. No matter what they do, they could just, blow their nose right into the camera. And guess what? Thousands and thousands of subs, thousands and thousands of likes, because they have already done something, so therefore they're Stamped, branded, awesome, great. So what? Big deal. You don't suck. Next. I play the same stuff. Now this is inspired by a friend of mine on YouTube. And actually, I will say that this friend doesn't really feel that way about this. This video is not directed at them, let's put it that way. I know this person's highly confident and they know they don't suck, and we all know that this person doesn't suck. However, as a friend of mine, you actually kind of sparked a thought in my head, so shout out to Ed Dana, because I started thinking, wow, you know, I run into the issue where I get a little bit tired of hearing what I'm doing, and I'm like, man, I'm playing the same stuff. Well, the thing is that it's all about context, right? All guitar players, it doesn't matter what guitar player you listen to, any really prominent guitar player, one of your idols, you pick them, whatever, you're going to hear what I call the loop in their playing, which basically means that you listen to them long enough and all of a sudden you're going to hear a lick come up that sound very familiar. Well, turns out that actually that is your style, right? It's almost as if you have a signature. So when you hear something and you're like, oh, I've done that, you know, and oftentimes what will happen is, you know, we have like the left brain and the right brain. The left brain's going to kick in and start editing and saying, no, man, you got to play something fresh. You got to play something that, you know, you never heard before, or they've never heard before, or whatever the case is. And it feels so unnatural, and part of the reason why is because of the fact that you have a signature style, which basically means that you're taking your signature and putting it over this song. You listen to Stevie Ray Vaughan, you'll hear his loop pretty quick, right? And this is not to downplay his playing, because Stevie Ray Vaughan's one of the greats. He's one of my biggest influences. But I could put on a concert video or tape done by him, and his loop closes usually probably by about the fourth song that you've already heard. He recycled riffs shamelessly, right? Absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's just all about context. You know, the number one takeaway from this entire thing is to like what you do. Like what you do. You don't suck. Sometimes that's the hardest thing that one can do. I know before I go to play live or anything like that, I have to tell myself, like every single note that comes out of this instrument. Now, I won't do that during a practice session. You know, during a practice session, I'll sit there and be like, hate everything that comes out of it and try to find something fresh and new. That's fine. But when you're up there live, that's it, man. You are in the trenches. So the thing is that you have to like what you do, which means like every note, every noise, every screech, everything, just like it. And when you can do that, you start becoming invigorated by your own playing. All sorts of things will come out of your guitar. And a lot of them will actually be things that you've done before. Maybe you've done 2 measures back, right? But each time it'll be fresh. So that's definitely the takeaway, is to like what you do. And if you can like what you do, then everything will always be fresh. Next thing. I'm not fast enough. What's fast? What really is speed in guitar? Because speed is flashiness. Now, I've heard so many people downplay speed, because I know that I've gone on YouTube countless times and looked up every single possible way I could somehow enhance my technique and make what I'm doing faster. Yes, I am one of those guitar players. And I'm here to tell you now that speed is really kind of more of a mindset than anything. Somebody said it really well on a message board. I can't remember where, but somebody said that whatever you're playing sounds about 20 times faster to the listener than it does to you. And that's kind of interesting. See, again, it's sort of a psychological thing going on, where you know, even an accomplished guitar player doesn't quite exactly know what you're doing right then and there. Fast runs are there for a purpose, and when we know what the purpose of fast runs are, we could definitely achieve them much easier. So generally, the way I like to frame speed is that it sort of is in place of where a drum fill would be. So when the drummer's going boom, 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 right? That little thing is a drum fill, and what that's basically doing is just sending you flying into the one. If you listen to the different varieties of drummer that's out there, and again, I like to use drummers when I think of speed in guitar, because they really actually know how to utilize these faster pulses, faster trains of pulses, if you would liken notes to that, is that they take a fast train of pulses so that they could send it off somewhere else, so that they could go ahead and indicate the one. They may do long fills, they may do short fills, right? Whatever. But all those things are there. Now, when you listen to variety in drummers, you're going to hear some that are so clean and meticulous, even almost too clean, too meticulous. To me, there is a level of too clean in guitar. There's also a level of too clean in drums, where you can almost see that they're micromanaging every single note, right? To me, it takes every stitch of soul out of it, but there is a whole faction of guitar players or drummers or whatever that like to hear things done really meticulously and clean. Good for them. You know what I mean? I'm not in that camp myself. I like a little bit of slop in the speed. So I might listen to, and it's funny because the name doesn't pop in my head right now. It's like Manu something or other, this drummer who played on Joe Satriani's self-titled album. Find that, listen to the drummer. Here I am talking about drummers, but listen to him on Joe Satriani's If, the song called If. And he's doing these fills, and he's doing some really fast fills almost out of place. You know, it's almost like what they would call the drunken monkey style. Like I was always a martial arts fan when I was younger, and you'd see them going up against somebody who's using the drunken monkey style, where they're doing stuff that was really effective. They could really bring down the opponent. But they always seemed as if they were kind of like on the edge of not knowing what they were doing. And that's kind of how Satriani's drummer approached his fills. And I'll tell you what, it just it made it groove. You know what I mean? It was so organic, basically. So going back to speed, a lot of people say, well, it must be fast, it must be really fast, or fast. There can be too fast, believe it or not. It must be really fast, it must be really clean, right? All the notes must be articulated there, so on and so forth. Not really. You know what I mean? You could play fast right now by just taking one fret, and you notice I don't have a guitar in my hand. It's because I think this time around I'm just going to actually talk about these concepts without complicating it with a guitar. Take a fret on a string, hit a note, slide it up to another note. Congratulations, you just played really fast. All right? If you're able to tremolo pick that, hit a note, tremolo pick it, and slide it, now, well, you just did full-on shredding right there. So congratulations, you just played fast. That can be used. That can be used in context of a song. You could do that the entire time, and guess what? You're now playing fast, right? All the other stuff, it'll come, it'll go. You don't really necessarily have to play every note fast, right? You could even kind of slow down and just sort of do a little trill and pick or not pick or whatever. Congratulations. The main thing is that you're using speed in a way that will signify where it's going to go next. If you keep that as the goal, then no matter what you do in terms of runs, will always be effective. So there's your concept right there. The other thing is, you also don't ever have to play fast at all. So if you're one of those players that any kind of concept of doing anything fast in any sense just completely escapes your mind, well then who cares, right? Play slow then. Play it well. Mean every note that you play. Like every note that you play. Enjoy every note that you play. And the audience will perceive that. And yes, you will be seen as a guitar player who does not suck. B.B. King did not suck. B.B. King never played fast at all. So there you go. Let's see. Not fast. My playing's too simple. There's another one. Alright, well, what immediately comes to my mind with that objection is that I like to take a quote from one of the world's greatest chefs who's ever lived. He's still living right now, and his name is Marco Pierre White. And he had always said that there's so much you could do in the culinary world. You could add this ingredient, that ingredient, and everything else. He goes, but the way to really, truly blow people's minds is with simplicity. Simplicity is the way to truly blow people's minds. Now this, I actually know from experience. And I encourage every player to always seek out their local jam night and get up on stage and play with musicians. Play whatever song they throw at you, because that's where you can gauge your playing on a real level. Plus you're playing with an actual band, so all of that combined, plus you're getting responses and all that, so you can really kind of get everything sort of immediately in terms of where you place as a guitar player, and constantly tweak and adjust and show up next week and do the same thing again and all that. That's really where I think you can hone your craft in a very short amount of time. But that aside, that was kind of a tangent. Simplicity is where you're playing, you may be thinking about a whole lot of things that you're doing, you're trying to add as much sophistication going on, whatever, and all of a sudden you just stop and you just hit one note. Womp! Right? Everybody perks up. You can tell. You hit that note. Womp! Womp! Well, before long, that drummer's following you. Crash. You're doing all of it. Bam, the intensity level just shot right through the roof. That's where simplicity really can bring things out. So never be afraid to play too simple. And oftentimes we play too complex. We tend to overcomplicate things. I'm notorious for overcomplicating anything, you name it. And sometimes I have to step back and say, okay, what is the absolute baseline, simplest approach to this that I could possibly take? Take that approach. Works every time. Let's see. I don't know enough styles. Oh, what style do you know? What style do you love? And what's the music that gets you moving and shaking? Then that's all you really need to know. If you decide you want to branch out and dabble in other styles, it's usually best to try to do that in rehearsal. However, if you are hitting your local weekly jam night, like I suggest, then oftentimes you will be thrust into different styles. Sometimes these jam nights, they tend to like to really kind of fashion things around blues, because blues seems to be the easiest to grasp. Blues tends to resonate with the audience, but surely, maybe you've mastered the blues and all of a sudden you get a country singer getting up there going, hey guys, I'd like to do this country song, and you're like, whatever. That's okay. Take your blues sensibility and apply it to the country. If you're a metalhead and you said, okay, I'm going to take Guitar Meet Science's advice and I'm going to go to my local jam night, and they're thrusting blues songs at you left and right. Cool. Take your metal sensibilities, which you know about metal, and apply it to the blues, right? Maybe you'll tweak your sound. Maybe you'll pull the gain down a little bit, pull your mid-range up a little bit, pull your lows and highs back a little bit, or whatever, to get more of a bluesy sound. And then you say, okay, well, I know from this metal song I'm playing a natural minor scale, so that's what I'm going to do over the song. Cool. Congratulations. People are going to love it. You just take whatever style that you're comfortable in, apply it to the next style, because guess what? all we have are 12 notes, right? Aside from those little microtonal notes that occur in bends. And for you microtonal players out there, I don't know what to tell you because I don't really know how to play microtonal other than bends or with a slide bar. So, oh, but then I get treated badly at the jam night. Okay, well, or at gigs. Don't show up drunk. Don't get drunk while you're there. Don't show up late if you're scheduled to be there. Have a good attitude. Be nice to everybody. Try to act humble. You'll probably get treated better. If not, then that means that you're bringing the goods. Somebody's jealous of you. Singer's treating you bad. Chances are you're stealing a bit of their spotlight. Singers always want to be in the spotlight. Sorry, that's just how it is. But not just singers, you know. Maybe the drummer wants to be the center of attention. Usually the one that's treating you bad is usually also the one who wants to be the center of attention. You can usually tell. That's okay. There's a few ways of doing that. You could either just say, screw them and steal the spotlight. Of course, they'll treat you even worse. Or you could be like, okay, cool, I'll lay back for this person, you know, whatever. So what? You know, it's basically it's all about honing your craft. And part of honing your craft is dealing with difficult individuals. So it's kind of a necessary evil sometimes that we just have to deal with. Next. Crowd is not responding to what we're doing. Well, sometimes you end up getting thrust up on stage with lineups where the musical abilities can vary. Getting stuck up there with a really bad drummer can be scary. But I look at it as an exercise in, okay, what can I contribute to try to make this groove, considering that the person back playing behind me can barely even hit a snare drum or something like that. Usually drummers sound bad when they play too softly. And oftentimes drummers who are not too sure of the groove will kind of soften up so they don't quite get heard. We all do that sometimes. Play tentatively, I guess you would say. What about if you get a bass player who's missing the changes, right? Well, again, it's just an exercise then. Okay, bass player didn't go to the bridge when we're supposed to go to the bridge. They're still playing the verse. Sounds horrible. Well, you find a way to make that work. You know what I mean? It's a matter of challenging yourself to try to make it sound as good as it possibly can. Make it sound like it was intended, or whatever the case is. And that sort of challenges your musicianship, your level of musicianship. So you have all that. We have a bad singer. Well, who cares? You know, I don't listen to the singer anyways. I just tune the singers out usually. You know, unless they're like, hey, Jimmy, why don't you take one? Oh, okay. They told Jimmy to take one. Woohoo! But other than that, most of the time I tune them out. If I'm singing, you know, I'm a pretty bad singer in a lot of cases. But that's okay. I'm just having fun. So I'll be like, cool. Well, I'm singing horrible. The crowd's not responding. Oh, well. Now it's just a free practice session on stage is the way I look at it. Now it's almost as if, well, we have no crowd, so let's play it for ourselves and have a good time. So either way, you can make the most of that situation is what I'm saying. Let's see. The other guitar player seems to get all the crowd response. Well, that's a win-win, right? So you do a solo, everybody's all talking, and then the other guitar player does a solo and everybody's riveted. And then they get done, they're like, yeah! Oh, how disheartening. Lord knows I've been in that situation many times. And for that, that's something that is there designed to make you a better musician. A lot of factors at play. Let's start off with the fact that maybe that other guitar player blows you away. Yes, well, I love being around guitar players that blow me away. That means, one, they're going to become my best friend. I'm going to become their best friend. That means that I'm going to hang around with that guitar player a whole lot, and I'm going to pick their brain every second that I possibly can. You know, oh, cool. How do you do that? Oh man, how do you pick like that? You know, chances are their ego's big enough that they're just going to be so happy to just tell you every single thing that they're doing, right? Somehow. Or they're going to be all secretive about their technique. That's okay. Then you have your significant other bring the camera and you keep on jamming with that guitar player every single time you can, and you steal their licks. That's what you do. That's if they're better than you. Then there's the other case where you're playing with them and you're like, they're playing utter shit, but they're getting all the crowd response and I'm not. What the? Okay, well then first thing you look at is your sound. Okay, I've had a situation where I was playing and a sound man basically made me sound like a mosquito buzzing around on stage, while all the other guest guitar players that would come up were allowed to like let their amps actually generate the sound and not have to go through the stupid sound system. I'm ranting, yes. That happened. I watch playbacks of videos and I'm like, okay, well that's cool. The sound man just like completely obliterated my sound. So as far as the audience is concerned, they couldn't even really hear me. All they could hear was top end of my guitar, and then the other guitar player actually, their notes were coming out. They could actually hear guitar notes. So right there, okay, so that's a lesson to be taken away. That's a takeaway then, to say, okay, to where I decide, do I really want to be in a situation where I want to give all control of my sound over to a sound man? No. Okay, so maybe there are gigs that I won't take where I'm required to, you know, go through the sound system only or whatever. That's something. There's a takeaway there. Takeaway with shaping your tone. And then we get to the third layer, or the next layer, which is that you sound awesome. You have you're able to use your amp just like they can use their amp or whatever, but yet still they're all dissing you and they got their play. You already know you're out playing the other guitar player, whatever. Well, then it's just a friend thing. Then it's just a politics thing at that point. So then you just look at the politics of the situation. Do we want to play the politics game? I don't know. That's entirely up to you. I personally don't. You know, I'm not into the politics thing. You know, you either like me for my playing, and you know, for whoever I am or whatever, or you don't, and that's just it. You know, big deal. At that point, you just say, well, I won't go to this jam. It's too politicky. Or, you know, I'm going to be a master of politics, and I'm going to go in there, and eventually they'll be behind me too. So either way, everything is always an exercise in how you can better yourself. That's the way I look at it. Win-win. You don't suck. I don't have the right gear. The only gear you need to have is gear that's loud enough that you can be heard over the drummer when you're taking a solo. That's it. Right? That's it. In a nutshell. I know guitar players will be like, what? No. Yeah, no. That's the long and short of it. After that, we could worry about shaping our tone. We could buy expensive stuff, cheap stuff to do it. It doesn't really matter. It's a matter of sort of knowing what gets us to sound the way that we want to sound. That could, you know, like I said, you could buy a $20 equalizer or something, $20 distortion pedal, or whatever, to achieve that sound, right? Some more expensive equipment may help you achieve that sound quicker, or guitar player X uses that form of equipment, so therefore I want to sound like guitar player X, so I've got to get that form of equipment. Not necessarily, you know. Use your ear, shape the tone with what you have to work with, and so long as your rig is loud enough, everything else will just come into play. So you don't suck. I can't get gigs. Can't get gigs. Well, one of that probably, for starters, probably stems in fear of actually going out and seeking them. And I'm not one to tell you, well, you got to overcome that fear so that this way you can get gigs. You know, that's not necessarily the case. Maybe we're not naturally wired to have that kind of social aptitude to get out there and book gigs or whatever, right? But you might meet somebody else who will help you with that. So that's always something. No matter what, we can't escape knowing other people. So maybe you might know somebody who's a real extrovert who can seek out bands and get you into bands, or seek out a venue if you're playing solo or your band can't get gigs, so somebody will help kick down that door because they just happen to have that social swagger about them that they could show up someplace and go, hey man, I got a great band here, you know what I mean? And they could talk your way into it. So that would be one thing that could be done to overcome that, you know. Or sometimes it's just like, well, why get gigs? Maybe you don't need a gig. Maybe, you know, hanging out in the room and playing is perfect. There are perks to that versus doing a gig. And you got to remember that gigs span all different types of styles. They span all different, I want to say, scenarios where you have to dress a certain way. You have to act a certain way on stage. A lot of things that you like to do and whatever you can't do. You know what I mean? Because you're getting paid. You have to stand 100 feet back behind the singer somewhere, you know. I personally am not really into that anymore. Yeah, I did it. It was great, earning money playing, you know, but it got tiring, really. Sometimes I just want to play that guitar. And oftentimes, you know, you're in a situation where it's like, well, we're not going to pay you if you want to do, you know, what you want to do. No. You're going to be quiet, you're going to stand back there, and you're going to play. Some people that works, you know. Some people, it's a badge of honor to be able to say, hey, I'm playing 10 different gigs or whatever, you know. To me, as a guitar fan, as a guitar listener, as a guitar player, usually those people I see as okay, they're the ones who know how to wear the right clothes, they show up on time, they have a good attitude. Does that make them a great player? No, not really. If anything, a lot of them tend to fall into the mediocre category, you know. And if it's like, well, I can't get big time gigs. Well, we don't know what big time gigs are. If you ask any of those guitar players, generally they fall into the big time on accident, a lot of them. Or just kind of one of those type things where one, you know, most of them just stumble into it. So you can't really look at that. That's almost kind of more of a luck thing than anything. So I don't know. Sometimes you don't really actually need a gig. You know, you can make your own gig. You could get on YouTube or Facebook, or you could Skype and have your own gig teaching, or you could do gigs on live streams. You know, there's a lot of different approaches that you could take to gigs. You know, your local jam night could be a gig. You know, it could lead to gigs. So you really never know where it's going to come from. But the main thing is try to find musical situations that you can stand that will basically further your musicianship. That's what I prefer to do. You know, playing the same thing night after night after night will get you so far in terms of shaping your tone, in terms of approaches and things like that. But when it stops paying off in terms of like actually upping your skills, then it's usually time to move on to a different thing. So again, you know, if you're not gigging, you don't suck. If you're gigging, you don't suck. Learning new things is too hard. Well, oftentimes when we learn new things, we want to learn like an entire piece, or an entire solo, or an entire this, or an entire that. And we feel sort of forced to learn all of that. You're talking about memorizing lots of things. I mean, come on. Usually the best way I've found to learn is to learn a little snippet. Like, say, for example, I want to learn somebody's style. I want to learn how they approach something. That's usually where I seek knowledge. Isn't really in what a person was playing, but how they approach it. Because I may like a set of licks that a guitar player did, and well, if I just learn those licks, lock, stock, and barrel, note for note, well, then that's all I've got. You know what I mean? It's like the fish versus, learning how to fish. So instead, I spend my time trying to learn sort of what went into that. Maybe slow down the lick and say, okay, what are they doing there? They're cascading notes in a certain way. What scales are they using? What is it about it that seems to resonate with me that I want to play that? And then see if there's a way that I might be able to generate that in my own playing. So in other words, I do this set of licks. Could I morph it to sort of take on the shape of their set of licks? Things like that. If you're learning something where you want to play it verbatim, then in that case it's usually best to just go ahead and go with small little chunks and, chunk by chunk by chunk. If you want to learn a lick exactly, learn that lick, but start by playing it in, say, halftime. So if they're doing 16th notes, da 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 da, learn how to do that same exact thing, da 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 da, and play that over grooves and incorporate that at that halftime, say 8th notes, into your solo. And then once you feel like confident enough that you might have the thing at 16th notes, then try to incorporate that into your solos, right? Here and there in a solo, say, okay, I'm going to pull out that lick now and do that. Sometimes when you're practicing, you could sit there and do that lick over and over and over again all throughout the course of a solo. Try to do it coming from a bend, land into that lick. Coming from a fast run, land into that lick or whatever. So, I don't know. Those are some ways that one can grasp sort of how to approach learning harder material. But usually, it's not really necessarily that the material's too hard. It's just that sometimes your mindset just isn't there to learn it at that point in time. That's cool too. Drop it. Move on to something else, and then maybe you could come back to that when you're feeling a little bit more soulful about actually learning it. And you'll know, as soon as you sit down and you start feeling like you're kind of like just taking it in, then at that point, that's the right time to actually learn how to play that. Ex-guitar player is so much better than I am. Well, congratulations. You don't suck. You've just now found yourself an influence. Because for one thing, to identify them as so much better than you are means that you like what they're doing. And the way I see an influence is that an influence is there to give you permission. Isn't that a weird concept? So an influence actually tells you, hey, did you know that you could go over there and do that and get away with it? They're getting away with stuff, right? So when you listen to an influencer, you watch an influence on video or whatever, they're showing you new boundaries that you can go ahead and cross. That's the way I look at it. They're not setting limitations. They're not showing you what you can't do. They're showing you what you can do. And when you look at an influence in that way, use them. You know what I mean? Exploit them. Slow down their work. Steal their licks. Do whatever you can. You know what I mean? Let them become a character in your player sphere of teachers. And again, all they're basically doing is just showing you what you can do. And you don't suck. Last objection. I'm too old. I'm too young. Ageism is hilarious. It's the funniest thing that you could possibly imagine, especially like when you got people railing against people who are older. That is the funniest thing, because if they're lucky, they get to be that old, right? Eventually, if they happen to be a younger person. Interestingly enough, I had taken one of my guitar things and I'd put it up on a Facebook guitar group, and it did extremely well. But like I said earlier on the dislikes thing, is that with that you're also going to get nasty comments. The better anything does, the more nasty comments you're going to get. Well, this one did pretty good in my the way I envisioned good to be. It was like 120 something, whatever, people liked it, bunch of shares and stuff like that. And nestled in there, of course, you get your nasty comments. And one of them said, "You go, old man." What? Whew, that one hit me. Pow, like a ton of bricks. Well, so I go on the person's page, and they're older than I am. What the heck? Okay. Well, I got to see how this person plays. Guess what? Not one single video of them playing. But they were a guitar player. They were a guitar player, and all they ever did was just had a ton of pictures of them posing with guitars. They're one of those guitar havers, or guitar collectors, I guess. They had like, this person had like a ton of nice guitars, Telecasters, Stratocasters, and all. Not one single video, audio, anything, nothing of them actually playing this instrument. All it was just a whole bunch of pictures. Look what I got, look what I got. So, I think you and I both can pretty much surmise the most likely skill level of this person. And generally that's what it is. So, I'm too young? Well, no, you're not too young. Being young is definitely the best thing you can be. I try to be younger every day. It doesn't really work. So, good on you if you happen to be young. You're never too young. You know, it's like, oh, I'm too young to get into a club to play. Oh, well, practice your way up, because by the time you're old enough to get into a club, you just want to slay the audience completely. So, just practice now, and once you're old enough to get into the clubs, you'll be blowing minds. And there's never too old, nothing. You know what I mean? Just look at, I don't know, pick an old guitar player. Pick Jeff Beck, he's old. Eric Clapton, he's old. Yes, their names have been established, whatever. So what? We can't control that. Whatever we can control, who cares, right? I don't run around with a big name. So what? Who cares? Just simply be comfortable with it, because we don't choose our age, right? We have no choice on our age. It's just our age is our age. That's it. So we just play. That's it. You know, and you're not too old to play something. So if you're like, I like current pop songs and I want to play them. Cool. You are not too old. You don't suck. And like I said, if you're young, there's absolutely nothing to complain about. You just keep on getting better, and you'll be just fine. So that's basically it. I don't know. I think really a lot of people have a hard time with defining success. You know, we set a bar, or we think a bar should be set. We think you must have this many subscribers, you must have this many viewers, you must be able to play blah blah blah, whatever. You know, that's all a construct, all of that. And oftentimes it's others out there that have set this construct. You know what I mean? And then we want to be the embodiment of that success that others before us have already defined. When really, all we want to do is define our own success, right? What are the bars we want to achieve? You know, so often you take a look at all these bars of success that we have sitting out there, and we say to ourselves, okay, do I really want to be a gigging guitar player? You know, what does gigging mean? Okay, now we might get to specific types of gigs. You know, I want to be headlining Madison Square Garden. You know, well, what does that mean? What does it take to headline Madison Square Garden? You know, and then all those things. Oh, I'm too old. I'm this. No, there are old people that actually headline Madison Square Garden. Okay, you know, where does it all? Where does it end? Where does it stop? So instead, no. We can sort of set our own bars of success basically on things that are right here. You know what I mean? We get right here, then we could go to the next thing, whatever that is. You know, nobody runs around completely content or satisfied. So we just set our daily bars and we go with that, you know. But the long and short of it is, you don't suck. So hopefully this has helped. I noticed there's not a single guitar in sight, aside from what happens to be laying over here, is because, like I said, I didn't want to complicate matters by just throwing out a stream of notes there and saying play this, play that, or whatever, because it's oftentimes it all starts right here. So first thing is, you don't suck. Second thing is, I can't remember. So if you like that and you're not subscribed, well then subscribe please, because I want more subscribers. I'd like it 1,000 subscribers. So anyways, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it, and good luck.